I'm glad you're here. How many of you get to the movie early at a theater for the previews? Anybody like to see the previews? How many of you do not like to see the previews? Okay. How many of you do not go to movie theaters? Okay, yeah, that's all right, that's fair. Now, here's the deal. I like seeing the previews, but I really like when you go to see a Pixar movie in theaters, because Pixar throws in the short film before the movie, okay? And I love those little short films. They're amazing. But we went and saw Incredibles 2 when it was in theaters, because my kids were obsessed with The Incredibles. I had waited too long for the sequel. I had to see it in theaters. And so we went, and I don't know if you remember, if you saw that, but the short film that came before The Incredibles 2 was called Bao. Anybody remember? Okay. It started off with this mom, and she's making a little like dumpling thing. Somebody can correct me on what the real food is. What? It is a bao. Thank you. I didn't guess that, but she's making a bao, and all of a sudden, the bao comes to life, and it is her child, okay? And so this mom now, she's a mom. She went from a baker to a mom real fast. This mom, she gets to see her baby grow. She gets to see it when it's an infant and hold it in her hands. She gets to take it and hold him when he gets hurt as a little bao toddler, right? She gets to take him on errands with her. They go all over the place together. She bathes him, right? She spends so much time with him in that season. But as he starts to grow a little older, he starts to want to do some different things. Like he wants to go and play with his friends instead of hanging out with his mom. He doesn't like when he's got a smudge on his cheek and mom licks her thumb and tries to wipe it off, right? How many of you have ever felt that? How many of you have felt that in high school? Okay. My mom would be like, in the car line, be like, kiss me right now. I'm your mother. Kiss me goodbye, right? And I'm like, no, right? That moment, right? So he starts to get older. He wants to go out with his friends. And then there's one day that he brings home a fiance. He brings home a lady, and this is the day. The mom has been here for all of the changes. She has seen him through everything, but she finally gets to a point where all of the changes, all of the life that has been lived, now is culminating in one moment. And this is what happens next. Check this out. Now, if you haven't seen that got real dark real fast. I just remember being in the theater with my kids, being like, I'm gonna have to unteach some things here. Like I feel like we did permanent damage. Okay, right? Like it was one of those where I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened, right? But I mean, on an artistic level, like as a parent, I was like, this is traumatic. My kids need therapy. On an artistic level, I was like, man, this is genius. Like on an artistic level, I was like, oh man, because what you feel when you watch that, what you feel is that pain when change happens so fast. That pain you feel when something starts to change in your life and you're like, I don't want change. I liked how things were before. I was super comfortable with yesterday. I was comfortable with last year. I was comfortable with my last team. I was comfortable in my last city. I was comfortable with my friends. And now I don't like change. I want to do something with you guys real quick. Stand up if you have ever moved schools before. If you've ever had to change schools, stand up. All the homeschool kids are like, nope. All right, if you've never changed schools? No? Okay. All right, sit down. Stand up if you have ever moved houses before. If you've moved to a new house before. Okay. All right, sit down. Stand up if you've ever moved states before. You live in a new state, okay? How many of you have moved to a new country before? Anybody moved to a new country? Stay standing. Okay, yeah. Anybody moved continents? Yeah, okay. Everybody who moved country also moved continents. All right, that was pretty cool. Okay. How many of you have a different best friend or different close friend than you did 5 years ago? Stand up if. Oh, such a good answer. Okay, all right. Take a seat. Stand up if. This one is serious. These have been pretty silly. Okay. Okay. Hey, stand up if you have lost someone in your life that you loved. Right? If you've had a change like that. Okay. All right. Sit down. Stand up if you've ever gone through a season of this is kind of vague, but follow me, of like depression or anxiety or trauma. Okay. And take a seat. Now think about this. All of those things represent different seasons. They represent major changes in our life that happen. And there's probably many more, right? There's probably changes that happen in your life that are different than the ones we just named, that are a big deal to you, right? Big things that happen in your life that marked who you are, that you've had to walk through and navigate. And we've been in this series called Made for More. And what we're trying to do in this series is we're looking at a book in the Bible called Ecclesiastes. The whole book of Ecclesiastes is a guy who, near the end of his life, wrote down and said, listen, I've been trying to find the meaning of life, and I've done a great job at it. In fact, I've done a better job than anyone could ever do at trying to find the meaning of life. And here's what he does. The first thing that he sets out to do is he seeks wisdom. In other words, he says, maybe life is about becoming the best version of you that it could be, right? Maybe life is about just spend your whole life becoming the best version of you that you can. Now, I'm going to be honest, that sounds good, right? That sounds like a pretty good option for the meaning of life. To just try to be the best Josh that I can be. And if I just continue day after day to be a better dad, to be a better husband, to be a better pastor, to be a better friend, to be a better neighbor, to just be better Josh, then maybe that's the meaning of life. And Solomon gets to the end of his life and he goes, hey, guess what? Trying to be a better version of you, it's a good thing, but it actually is basically kind of meaningless by itself. So then he says, well, if that doesn't work, then I'm going to try to have as much fun as possible. Like, gosh, that sucked. So let me just try to have as much fun as possible. And he's richer than we are. He has 1,000 wives. So he has a lot more sex than you ever will. He has all the entertainment that he can want. I mean, he just tries to have as much fun as possible. And he's like, hey, listen, you know what? That really didn't make up for this meaninglessness. And then he says, well, maybe it's about achievement, hitting my dreams, hitting goals, accomplishing things, leaving a legacy. Who cares how big I have to work, how hard I have to go? I'm going to make a name for myself. And he did. He ended up with multiple books in the Bible that that have survived 3,000 years. He has architectural construction projects that are still around today. He built world wonders. He established national peace in his country. I mean, just like, you want to talk about somebody who accomplished things, he did. And at the end, he just said, you know, I feel a little bit of meaningless with this too. So I don't know about you. I don't know about you, but I just remember the first time reading Ecclesiastes, getting to this point and being like, gosh, this is the most depressing book in the Bible. This is awful. In fact, I told one of my coworkers, one of my buddies, he's like, what are you preaching tonight? I was like, Ecclesiastes. He's like, dude, you're dark and messed up. And I was like, I know, but it's so good. Like, we've just got to discover this. We've got to wrestle through this. Because, if you don't understand what life's about, you're wasting every moment of your life. We talked about that last week, right? And so this is literally the next part in the book of Ecclesiastes that Solomon gets to. He sets out, he says in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, for everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven. For everything there's a season, a time for every activity under heaven. Here's what he's about to attack. He's about to attack change. But the reality is that I hate when things change. I don't like when things change. I like when I get things right to a nice, comfortable spot, and then I want to ride that out until I die. That's what I would like to do. I wouldn't say most. I would say that it's probably reasonable to assume that many of us are looking for the perfect balance in our lives. Like at any moment that you feel a little anxiety, you go, oh man, I need to get rid of this. I need to get balanced a little bit. If you're depressed or sad or anything like that, you're like, oh man, I just need happiness back. Some of you are like, man, I'm overcommitted right now. I'm working too hard. I'm just trying to find balance. A lot of you last week when we talked about pleasure, like having fun or pursuing like goals, dreams, achievements, most of you said, I'm right in the middle. Do you know what that tells me? That you want balance. You're like, you know what? Life would be good if I could just find the perfect balance in my life. If I find the perfect balance, then everything's going to be good. And Solomon is about to attack balance for us. So I need something real quick. I'm about to read these verses, but Caleb, can I have you come up here? I want you to stand in front of the stage, and I want you to grab a chair real quick. Grab a chair real quick for me. Yeah. So you face out this way. Gavin, if you can make sure that you got, no, stand up. Don't get lazy on me. Gavin, make sure that you got him. In fact, here's what I want you to do. I want you to hold the chair. I want you to hold the chair off the ground. Okay, yeah, that's very good. But I feel like sometimes life is a little trickier than this. You know, when you're trying to hold life together. So I want you to hold it out a little bit. Just hold it out. Yeah, straight arms, raise them up, parallel to the floor. There we go. Okay, now here's the deal. I know because Caleb told me a little bit ago that yesterday was chest day. Okay, so I know that he's feeling a little bit of this. But Caleb, is that easy? Is this easy? How is this?
My answer determines whether this gets worse.
Okay. I was gonna make you do two chairs. How you feeling about this? All right, hey, parallel, arms up. Okay, all right. Here's what I want to do. I'm gonna read you the verses that Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1, all the way through 8. For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven. Caleb, how you doing?
I'm fine.
All right, he good. Verse 2, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching. I see it in your face. A time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Caleb, how you feeling?
Tired.
How long do you think you could do this? Do you think you could finish the service like this?
No.
Okay. Hey, everybody give Caleb a round of applause real quick. All right. Hey, you can put your chair back, dog. Now, Caleb's a beast. Caleb's a beast. And he was able to hold this thing together for a good amount of time. But every single one of us recognized in this room that at some point, this was going to change. That at some point, the arms were going to start to dip. You were going to start to see a little bit of shake, right? A little bit. Have you ever done like the wall squat? And then you get like the little, right? You got like a full shake going on. Like at some point, you just can't continue to keep the season from changing. Sometimes change is going to come in your life, and guess what? Do you know what Solomon realized? He said, I have no control, and sometimes things are going to change. Now think about this. Think about this. The guy with the most money in the world, the guy who's the wisest in the world, the guy who is, he has all the resources. He's a king. He gets to boss everyone around. If there's anybody who can hold things together, it's King Solomon or Spider-Man and Spider-Man No Way Home, right? I mean, it's one of those guys. Far From Home, Home Alone 4, Home Return, whatever. What's the home? Oh, that's Toby. I'm sorry. No, that's Andrew Garfield. Shut up. Okay. It's Mark Wahlberg. All right. Hey, listen. At some point, the season is going to change. And here's what Solomon says. Solomon says that there is an appropriate time for every season. Now, I don't know if you recognize how good that is, but here's the deal. Because sometimes there's a moment where we enter into a season and things feel really good and nobody questions that. You ever had a really good year? Just like a dope school year where you just got more friends as the school year went on. Like your grades got better. You did better on the team that year. You had more people follow you on social media than ever before. You just felt like you had a year where you went from third chair on saxophone all the way to the top. You had one year where your parents were like, I'm proud of you. And you were like, I know you are. Like you had a year where like things were just good. You just felt good. Like every joke you told, people laughed, right? Just like that kind of, you just had that kind of season. You had a time when things were just going good and you felt good and things were alive. And some of you, honestly, some of you, you're living that right now. And you're not really complaining. You don't go, God, why have you brought me into this season? I just love it. Right? Like, no, you're not complaining about that. Like when things are going good and God brings us into a good season, normally we're like, man, God's good, everything's good. I'm loving life right now, it's good. And we have no issue there, but sometimes we enter into a hard season. Sometimes things beyond your control. Sometimes things happen like COVID that none of us had control over. And the season changed. You didn't get to go to school like normal. You didn't get to be on teams like normal. You didn't get to engage with friends like normal. You didn't get to have human interaction like normal. You didn't get to eat restaurant food like normal. You had to eat it like a pack rat in your house, right? Like you just didn't, like that was beyond your control, beyond everyone's control, but the season changed. Sometimes the season changes because someone around you has done something wrong and brought you in. Sometimes the season that you walk into is one that is not your fault and you pay the penalty. You've entered into a season that you still cannot control. Change has happened. Sometimes you walk into a season that was brought on by your own doing. But the change begins to happen around you, and that's a moment where so many of us go, God, where are you? God, what are you doing? God, what is this? God, are you even there? God, are you even real? God, do you care? Are you listening? Maybe not. See, those are the moments that we really have trouble with. Then when those kind of seasons come, and here's the reality, that seasons are going to change around you. In Ecclesiastes 3:11, Solomon says something that is unbelievably wise because it's his character. It's unbelievably wise because it's something God gave him. It's an insight from the Lord. Ecclesiastes 3:11, he says, "Yet God has made everything beautiful for its own time. And he has planted eternity in the human heart. But even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end." Here's what it means. You can't see the big picture. You don't get to see the big picture. Not now. You have no idea. You ever started a TV series or a movie, and at the very beginning, you were like, I know how this is going to go. And then at the end, you were like, that is not how I thought that was going to go. Can I be honest? Can I be honest with you? I just finished Stranger Things. And here's the deal. My wife and I spent some time one night before we finished the show, and we were like, here's how it's going to end. And I'll be honest, my wife and I wrote a better ending than the Duffer Brothers, okay? I'm just saying. We did a better job. We closed it out much nicer. I think it's better. I think everybody would still be subscribed to Netflix right now if we had finished that show. But we didn't. We had no idea how it was going to end. It did not end the way that we thought it was going to be. And guess what? Just like life, you have no idea what God is working because you can't see his scope. But God can. God has the whole view. And he makes everything beautiful in its time. God makes everything beautiful in its time. Here's why I think this is a problem. Because if I know that God is trying to make everything beautiful in its time, what that means is in every single season, the season changed, but God won't. Your season is going to change, but God doesn't. Seasons change, God will not, cannot, does not. God's not changing. Everything around you might be different, but God is not changing. And the beautiful thing is that every single season that you're in, God is working something beautiful out of it. God has a plan to make something beautiful out of it. I mean, it's like when you take cow manure and you're like, this is filthy and awful and terrible, but you put it on a plant and life comes. Like, this is literally how God works. He takes crap and he makes something incredible. Like, God is working something beautiful in every single season. But can I be honest? There are moments in my life where I just don't want to be in the season that God has brought me to. There are moments that I don't want to be here. I don't want to live here. I don't want to be in this season. I don't want to be where things are happening around me. I liked my old friends. I liked my old neighborhood. I liked my last school. I liked my last girlfriend. I liked when things were good between us. I liked the old ways, the past season. I don't like the change. But we come to a place where we just have to recognize that God is working something really beautiful. And what he's asked us to do is appreciate where he has us in every single season. We're called to appreciate where God has us in every single season because he's working something beautiful in its time. Now, I know that that's easier said than done, but you need to understand who God is. You need to understand Psalm 100, verse 4. It says, enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. If you've never heard the word Thanksgiving other than turkey and gravy and sausage, it just means sausage? That's not right. What am I thinking? Thank you. What are y'all doing on Thanksgiving? Breakfast? No, I'm just kidding. All right. No. He's just like giving thanks. Enter God's presence. Enter the place where he dwells. Come to him. He's talking about when you pray, when you worship, when you want to encounter God. Enter his gates with thanksgiving. Come to him appreciative. Enter his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name. Why? Why do we do that? For the Lord is good, and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. And man, I'm just like blown away by this. That you have a God who is always good, and his love endures through generations. Recently, one of our leaders, Camila, was telling me about on her vacation, she saw a 400-year-old tree. And that blew my mind. Like, think about this. Think about this. This tree is older than your grandparents. This tree is older than anyone living on earth right now. This tree is older than every mammal. This tree is older than America. This tree is older than the government structure of democracy. Wait. Think about this. This tree has lived through like numerous empires. It saw Native Americans like, what's up, tree? It saw all the white people come and be like, what's up, tree? Right? It saw all of it. I mean, it's just been here for 400 years through generation after generation after generation, staying the same. And you have a God who is unchanging. Why can we appreciate and come into his gates? Because he's been there the whole time, and he has the big picture. Lamentations 3:20. Jeremiah, who's a prophet in the Bible, lived about 2,500 years ago. He says, I will never forget the awful time as I grieve over my loss, yet I still dare to hope when I remember this. The faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. Great is his faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh each morning. I say to myself, the Lord is my inheritance. Therefore, I will hope in him. Here's what he says. Listen, I'm never going to forget this. This sucks. How many of you feel like you're going to remember COVID for the rest of your life, right? Like there's probably not, I really doubt, unless like you get whacked in the head at some point in the next couple of years, right? That you're going to be like, COVID, what's that? Right? Like that's a moment that you will probably never forget. There are some seasons when they change, you'll never forget them. It marked. It did something. And Jeremiah just says, man, listen, I'm never going to forget this. But you know what I can hold on to? I can hold on to that God is good every single day. And every single day I can go back to him and refresh. Because I don't have the energy for tomorrow today. But I do have today's energy from God today. I've got new mercy from God today. I can work with that today. I don't have tomorrow's yet. Tomorrow's going to look different. Tomorrow's going to have some other changes. But I have a God who's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And not only is he unchanging, but he's passionate about you. Romans 8:28, we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. Here's what this means. It's one of the most important verses, I think, in the Bible, is that God is working something good in you. Do you know what I don't like? I don't like when I enter into a season that's difficult, and so I try to rush out of it. You ever feel that? Let me give you an example. I have a friend who had something tragic happen maybe 7, 8 years ago. And if you have a conversation with them, that's still the number one topic. They're holding on to a past season. They've never grown out of it. I know other people who have gone through something. They've gone through a big change, big season shift. And you go, how are you doing? What's going on? You okay? Good, great, never been better. I'm awesome. And then you say like one key word and they're like, right, they just lose it. They throw something. You ever have that? You ever meet somebody who has not worked through something in their life? Right, like really old people who were still angry about something that happened 20 years ago. Right, you got like really salty teachers that like hate a class that happened like 15 years ago. They're like, stupid kids. You're like, that was forever ago. People were still wearing bell bottoms, okay? Right, like, just like move on. There's some times when I'm going through something that I just want to rush through it. I just want to move on to the next thing. I just want to get over it. But God is actively trying to work something out in me. Do you know what Romans is saying in that? It's saying that God wants to work something. And if he brought you into a season, there's something he's trying to accomplish with you in that season. He's trying to do something in you. He's trying to do something through you. He's trying to do something for you. He's working all things for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. He's got a purpose and a plan, and he's actively at work trying to do something in you. And sometimes, listen, this is important. You can miss what God's trying to do. You can ignore it. You can put it off. You can put it to the side. You can pretend like it's not happening. You can try to get out of it. You can ignore God, and do you know what happens? Sometimes you end up circling a season again and again and again and again. You got, here's the thing. You don't have to look at anybody. Don't look at anybody. Don't say it. Just, okay? Just look right at me right now, okay? How many of you know somebody in your schools who has cheated on a boyfriend, girlfriend? Don't look at them. Don't look at them. Okay. Now here's the deal. How many of you know those people who have cheated? How many of you have seen them cheat multiple times? Okay, now think about that. Why? What happened? Well, they're circling the same thing over and over and over and over again. How many of you have ever had somebody say, I'm sorry, I'll never do that again, only to do it again later? Right? How many of you recognize that sometimes we circle the same thing over and over and over again? We just kind of hover in one spot. And God's saying, I have a plan and a purpose, and there's something I want to work out with you, so don't rush through this. Don't miss what I'm trying to do. Because Ephesians 2:10 says, you are God's masterpiece. Listen, God doesn't bring us into seasons to destroy us. He brings you into seasons to build you. And there are appropriate seasons for everything. There's a time to mourn. Hours ago in this room, we held a funeral service for a man who's attended this church for many years. He passed away recently. And I'm telling you, people cried in this place. Do you know why? Because there's a time to mourn. There's a time to be sad about something. Then there's a time to laugh. There's a time to enjoy. You ever been to like a party, hanging out with friends, and somebody just comes in like full-on downer. Just walk in like, what's up, let's go. And they're like, hamster just died. Don't really like people right now. That hamster was the best thing that ever happened to me. Right? Just like somebody just brings the whole thing down. You're like, this is my birthday party. Can we not? There's a time to mourn. There's a time to dance. There's a time to weep. There's a time to rejoice. There's a time to die. There's a time to heal. There's a time for everything. And what God has called us to do is recognize the beautiful, appreciate what He is doing in the season. Let me share something with you. Tonight, I preach this as much to myself as I do to you. Like there's some moments that I'm up here and I'm like, I remember what I was like when I was in high school 30 decades ago. JK. But y'all don't know no better. You're like, is he 60? Maybe. Took me a long time. Math. But tonight is not one of those nights. I preached this message to our 5th through 8th graders on Sunday about seasons, and God wants to work something in your season, and God wants to, he sees where He's bringing you, and He wants you to recognize what's beautiful in it. He wants to use it for you. And I preached that word, and I was like, little middle schoolers, you better get this. Monday night, I got a call. My grandfather had hours left to live. And I tell you, in that moment, even as a pastor, like I think like, my job is to talk. My job is to have like good words when y'all ask questions. But when I stared at my grandfather, I didn't have any good words. I didn't have the words that I wanted, I didn't have like the wise words and the appropriate words. And my grandfather was a huge part of my life. I'm pretty sure he taught me to drive more than anybody else. Golf carts, go-karts. I loved his work ethic. I loved all the things. I don't know anybody who worked harder than him. And Monday night, I got off the phone, and 4 hours later, he passed. And the season ended. The next morning, I had a friend tell me he's moving away. That season is changing. And just the weird thing. Monday night, I was on FaceTime with my grandfather, and I just told him, you can go to sleep, Papa. Like, I know you're tired. I know you need to rest. This is the end of your season. So go to sleep. Rest. And I didn't catch it till later. Last night I was with my 3-month-old daughter. And she's sitting there late into the night, just rubbing her eyes, fighting sleep. And the first words out of my mouth were, just rest. You can sleep. But this is a whole new season. One is the end of a season. One is the beginning of the season. I have no idea where you're at in life right now. I don't have a clue what your season is right now. But I know a God who has the fullest view of your life, who has a beautiful plan for your life, who has a purpose for you, who is working things out in you, who is orchestrating things to build you and grow you for your good, not for your harm. I have a God who loves you so dearly that in this season, whatever it looks like, he's trying to work something out for your good. And so all I can do tonight is invite you to a heart that says, God, whatever you're doing, I want to know. God, whatever you're doing, I want you to grow me. God, whatever you're doing, whatever this season is, make it beautiful. God, whatever this is, whatever you are at work doing, and listen, sometimes those seasons are incredible. Sometimes you're in an awesome place. Life is good. Things are fun. Everything is happy. And God is actively at work. Don't miss him. And sometimes things are hard and the season brings tears and God is at work. Don't miss him. I don't know where you are. Your season will change, but God will not. And in every season, I just want to invite you to find God and find where he's working. So we're going to put on another song. You can sing it or you can pray. But I want you to I just want you to be honest with God about where you are. Some of you, life is great. Life is good. Enjoy it. Appreciate it. Honor God with it. Some of you, life is hard. It's tricky. Find what God is doing. Stand up with me. I'm going to pray for you. Father God, in every season, you're working something for the good. So God, in this season, and we're in different ones, each of us, God, would you let us see what you're doing, what's beautiful. God, we can't hold life together. And that's not even the meaning of life. It's not worth trying. It's not worth trying to keep things from changing. Things will change. Seasons will move.